It starts at 2:13 a.m. with a phone that doesn't have a contact list. No name, no caller ID, just a vibration on your nightstand like an insect trapped under glass. You answer on the second ring because you were trained to answer on the second ring. First ring is panic, second ring is control. A man's voice says one sentence: calm, expensive, bored. Can you be at Teterboro in 40 minutes? You don't ask who, you don't ask why. You look at the bag already packed in your closet. Passport, cash, spare shirt, burner phone still sealed in plastic. A little notebook with no branding and no lines. You say yes. The voice says good and hangs up. Outside, the city is asleep, in the way a city pretends to sleep. Streetlights, empty cabs, a siren somewhere far enough away to be someone else's problem. You take your own car, never a ride share, never a driver. You drive like you're invisible and like you're being watched because both are usually true. At the private terminal, security doesn't check your ID. They check your face, a nod, a wristband, a door that opens without a sound. On the tarmac sits a jet with no logo, and a tail number registered to a company that owns nothing and is owned by nobody. A woman in black hands you a tablet. On the screen, an NDA longer than most marriages. She doesn't smile. She doesn't introduce herself. You sign with your finger. You never ask for a copy. Inside the jet, the air smells like leather and money and a citrus cleaner that costs more than your first car. A man sits in the rear cabin with his shoes off like he owns gravity. He looks ordinary in a way that's engineered. Neutral haircut, neutral face, neutral clothing. The kind of normal that takes a team. This is Rowan Vale, tech billionaire, philanthropist, visionary, the kind of man who gets invited to the White House and sued in 3 countries in the same week. He doesn't stand to greet you. He doesn't need to. He gestures at the seat across from him. You sit. Rowan says, "You're the guy who makes things stop being true. You don't correct him. You just ask what kind of true." Rowan leans forward like he's sharing a secret. Like secrets are rare for him. Tonight, he says, "I need a story to die before breakfast." This is what you do. You are not his lawyer. Lawyers leave paper trails. You are not his bodyguard. Bodyguards solve problems with hands. You are not his PR team. PR people lie in daylight. You are his fixer. A private problem-solving function. Outsource the way billionaires outsource guilt. Your job is simple to describe and impossible to explain to normal people. You prevent consequences. Consequences are a tax. Rowan does not pay taxes he can avoid. He slides a folder across the table. No markings, no letterhead. Inside are 3 photographs printed on thick paper like wedding invitations. A hotel suite. A woman, Rowan, half in frame, laughing at something off camera. The kind of laugh you can only afford when you believe the world is padded. Rowan says, "That's from last night." You say, "Someone wants money." He shrugs. Or power. Same thing. You flip the last page and there it is. A screenshot of a draft email. Subject line exclusive. Vale's private vice. Recipient. A journalist at a national outlet sends scheduled for 6 a.m. Rowan checks his watch. It's 2:27. He says, "You have 3.5 hours." You don't ask how the photos were taken. You don't ask who the woman is. A fixer doesn't need the whole story. The whole story is the disease. You treat symptoms. You say, "Do we want the journalist scared, bought, or distracted?" Rowan smiles like you just spoke his native language. "Whichever is cheapest," he says. Then, as an afterthought, cheapest long-term. That's the difference between rich and truly wealthy. The rich buy a solution. The wealthy buy future silence. The jet Wi-Fi is fast enough to stream consequences in 4K. You open the burner phone. New number, clean slate. Your first call is to a man who answers with talk. You say, "I need to know who has access to a hotel hallway camera on the 19th floor of the Meridian on 58th. The man doesn't ask why. He says, "Give me 20 minutes. You hang up. Your second call is to the journalist. Not directly. Never directly. You call someone who knows someone who owes someone. A woman answers. Her voice is cheerful in the way professionals are cheerful, like a nurse about to insert an IV. You say, "I heard your friend is about to publish something exciting." She pauses. "Who is this?" You give her a name that isn't yours. You give her a title that isn't real. You give her confidence like it's an ID badge. You say, before your friend hit send, I'd like to offer a different story. She laughs once. We don't trade. You say, everyone trades. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's access. Sometimes it's safety. The silence on the line goes a little colder. You don't threaten. Threats are loud. Loud is for amateurs. You just describe gravity. At 4:05 a.m., the first man calls back. Housekeeping manager, he says. Name's Luis, gambling debt, 2 kids, wife's sick. He sold the hallway footage to a freelance security consultant who is in security. You say, name of the consultant? He gives it to you. You write it down in the notebook. Ink, not digital. Digital remembers. You say, can you get me Louise? The man says, already have him. He's crying. You say, put him on. Luis gets on the line and speaks like a man who knows he stepped on the wrong sidewalk. I didn't know. He says, like, I swear I didn't know. You say, Louise, you don't have to know. You just have to fix what you broke. He says, I don't have the money anymore. You say, I'm not calling about money. That's when he really starts to panic because money is the friendly version of consequences. You say, calm as a spreadsheet. I need the raw file. I need every copy. I need the name of the person you gave it to, and I need you to understand something. If you cooperate, you keep your job. If you don't, you lose more than your job. You hear his breathing change. You hear him decide to live. He gives you what you need. By 5:30 a.m., you have the footage in a secure drive that will never touch the internet. By 5:37, you have the consultant's name, address, and 2 divorces. You don't break into his apartment. That's messy. That's a crime. You do something cleaner. You send someone else, a private security contractor with the legal authority of a scarecrow and the confidence of a man with a gun. He knocks. He talks. He implies. He returns with the consultant's laptop and a signed statement saying he voluntarily surrendered materials. Voluntary is a flexible word when you know what someone's mortgage looks like. At 5:58 a.m., the journalist's scheduled email never sends. At 6:10, a different story breaks. A competitor CEO caught in a harassment scandal. It trends. It spreads. It eats the oxygen. Rowan's name vanishes from the timeline like it was never there. Rowan doesn't thank you. Thanks are personal. Fixing is transactional. Instead, he asks, how much? You tell him a number that would buy a house in most states. He nods like you asked for cab fare. Then he says, retainer starts today. 7 figures quarterly. Just like that, your life becomes a subscription service. The jet lands somewhere you're not allowed to call somewhere. A car takes you to a building with no sign. Then down a ramp into an underground garage that smells like concrete and secrets. This is the family office, not a company, not a home, a control room. Inside, people move quietly. No loud laughter, no personal photos, monitors on walls, calendars that look like war plans. You meet 3 people and you understand immediately that Rowan Vale is not a man. He's a system. First is general counsel, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and predatory competence. She says, we don't ask you to break laws. She pauses just long enough for the sentence to become a joke without anyone smiling. Second is head of security, ex-military, clean hands, cold gaze. He says, if you're in this building, you don't exist. Third is the chief of staff. Young, terrifyingly organized. She hands you a second phone. This is internal, she says. Never power it on near your personal devices. You nod. You already knew. That week you learned the rules. Rule 1, nothing is said plainly. You don't say bribe. You say make it comfortable. You don't say threat. You say communicate risk. You don't say cover up. You say stabilize narrative. Rule 2, everyone is replaceable, so everyone is loyal. Not because they love Rowan, because they love what Rowan makes possible. Rule 3, the billionaire is not the danger. The danger is the orbit. Assistants, drivers, friends, girlfriends, cousins, startup founders. People close enough to touch the flame and dumb enough to think they won't burn. Your job is to keep the orbit from collapsing. Your second file lands on your desk, if you can call it a desk. It's a slab of wood that cost more than your yearly rent in a room with no windows. The chief of staff says, this one is sensitive. They always say that. Sensitive just means expensive. She slides you a single page, a name, a date, a location, San Rope. Under it, one line, employee incident, potential fatality, media risk high. You look up. Employee, she says, on the yacht. You feel the temperature in the room change because everyone knows there are problems. You can buy in problems. You can bury in problems that crawl back out of the ground no matter what you pay.